I'm Jason from Smoking and Drinking in Space, a sci-fi podcast from a couple guys who think they know sci-fi.
And I'm Rob from Smoking and Drinking in Capes, a superhero podcast from a couple guys who wish they had powers.
And we're part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now.
Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others.
And you can find other cool, awesome, geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome to an all-new episode of Better Podcasting Live Chat. I am Steven, and I'm pleased to say we said he wasn't going to be here, but SP's actually here!
You know, I didn't lie because I said I wouldn't be here next week, and this is technically the following week, so I think I'm still good.
That's absolutely true. We are actually recording this at an unusual time. We're recording this today on Sunday, the 17th of September. There's a chance that this is actually going to go out in the feed a handful of hours later. I don't know how many hours you get in a handful, but you know, there's a chance. There is a chance.
It's like a snowball. Is it like a one-handed snowball? Is it a two-handed snowball? Like, how many fingers do you need to handle the snowball? And we're not talking about a snowball microphone, because we're not going to be talking about that on Better Podcasting, other than there are better microphones out there for use for your hobby podcast than a blue snowball, which I don't even know if it's available anymore, but on the used market, I know they're there. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff to cover, a very short time to cover, which is going to be an abbreviated episode. Steven, we got a couple of giveaway updates.
Yeah, so last week I had talked all about how I was going to give away a Blue Sky code. There was an opportunity for a Blue Sky code, and that went to Damien. Damien, the DM, claimed it. So, hey, you know what? I'm in a good mood. It's early in the morning. I got another one to give away. So if you have interest in Blue Sky, why don't you come on over to our Discord at betterpodcasting.com/Discord, and I will put one aside there to keep for the next person who says they would like the Blue Sky code, with a little bit of a limitation that I'm only going to put it on reserve for a couple of weeks. I'm recording this on the 17th of September if it's not claimed by the end of the month. Actually, that's not even a couple of weeks, but it's close enough. If it's not claimed by the end of the month, it is going back into the pot for me to give away, but I will put one more aside because, hey, it'd be great to have some more of our community over on Blue Sky.
And I would expect a follow to the Stargate Pioneer account if you win
yes.
That's my caveat to your Blue Sky code, is that I would like a follow over there. And I will probably follow you back. I think I've followed everybody that's followed me over there so far. I have a giveaway update. You know, the lovely Better Podcasting mug, the coffee mug that I was giving away a while back. John Badger got his, and he messaged me. He said he's having a little bit of problem taking a picture because it's just at an inopportune time, I'm guessing with lighting. So he's going to be doing that at some point in time in the future, but he did receive it and he thanked me for it. So that is the latest on the Better Podcasting mug giveaway.
And just a clarification, make sure you come to the Better Podcasting channel on the Discord and tell me there, tag me in there, say that you would like to claim that code, because if you put it in another channel, there's a chance I might miss that.
We also had an exciting news in podcasting tech with a Apple event, I guess. I don't know. I didn't watch the event. Steven, did you watch the event?
I had it streaming as background noise. It was lackluster, but hey, you know what? That's what most of these events are these days. They're all highly produced, especially Apple. And they don't have the magic that once did. But you know, it's a good thing if you want to be there and check out the cutting edge details of the latest technology. And the biggest thing that SP is alluding to is that the new iPhone, the iPhone 15, they are officially switching to the USB-C port. There was some government mandate in the EU legislation that came into play that basically forced Apple to do this. And so they are adopting that. The USB-C is one that has become a universal standard across the board for a lot of various different things. SP is looking puzzled.
Universal standard. So the universal standard for my USB-C cord that I had to get for my Rodecaster Pro 2, and I had to buy an SC19 cord specifically because it is programmable to whatever proprietary device you have. So universal in that it's the same fit form, but not universal in functionality.
And that is a problem with the implementation that happened. It was not supposed to be that way. And of course, manufacturers do what manufacturers do, and they like to change things. It's, well, if you want to get to our Discord, go over to the smart home channel in our Discord, and I can tell you about all the ways that other universal standards are being broken. But anyways, SP brings up a good point. But overall, for power, which is I think the biggest function at this point for many users with phones, is charging. A lot of people do their data transfer elsewise, and so the power is and I get that there are some people that still do data transfer by that, but day to day people are using it for power, and I think that was the force here. That happened.
You can program it not to pass power.
You can, but it's not even necessarily programming. You could do that with any cable along the way, that you could have it have power functions changed, and we ran into that with micro USB, where you would have a limited amount of power going through the micro USB. So you'd go to plug in your phone and you'd be like, why is this saying that it's going to take like 30 hours? But meanwhile, you'd grab a real cord. So it's been a long time problem with USB. And I'll be honest, I think that this nitpicking of the USB-C standard implementation is applicable to Lightning and the third-party Lightning connectors that are out there. There have been people who have had poor Lightning connectors developed that have affected slow charge, data transfer, and also quality. So, and of course, not to mention the spyware. So I think the knee-jerk USB-C complaining is valid. I think that there's absolutely validity in what's being said, but I think it's also an unfair counter, tit for tat.
What did you think I said that was complaining? Because I wasn't complaining. I was simply stating fact that I think it's hilarious about this USB-C being a universal standard, where I know it's not a universal standard because it can cut power. And then you went on to say, well, cords kind of change over time. Yes, every single Lightning cord I have had has changed over time to being able to work, to be able to not work. So it just happens over time with the Lightning stuff. I actually think I like this going forward. I have a USB-C on my 2018 iPad Pro that I use, and I've enjoyed it. I'm just worried that eventually you're going to have to buy your Apple proprietary cord in order to even charge.
Right. And I wasn't necessarily referring to what you were saying. There's been lots of people who have been saying the similar talking points that you have, which are, again, they're all valid. They're all very valid, and that there is difference within it. And that's the problem when you create an open standard, is that you do end up having people who change this. And it is frustrating that that's the case. That's not what USB-C was supposed to be. That's why so many people were at the table. And it's a valid point. So I'm not denying that whatsoever.
Now, you might be saying, guys, what is this, Tech Talk on Better Podcasting? What does the iPhone have to do with podcasting? Actually, a lot, because the podcasting infrastructure overall, more than 60% of podcasts, sometimes 70%, are consumed through an Apple device. And that is via statistics that you can find on Buzzsprout or Libsyn. They drop them every month or so. So it is true. It's statistically relevant for both of those, that there is a lot of data that is going through for podcasts that is going through an iPhone. So that is why we're even talking about it. But there are a few things that I have nitpicked on it, if you would allow me to.
Sure, go ahead. And I'll chime in something else when you're done as well.
Okay. So a few things. I have an iPhone 14 Pro Max in my hands right now. I've been using it for the past year. And I went to the Apple site, and they have a great thing that you can compare and contrast. So after the announcement came out a couple days later, I was sitting in the boat. We weren't catching any fish. So I was like, okay, what's the difference between the 14 and the 15? So I compared it. There is so many minor differences between the two. The only ones that I could find was the USB-C connection versus Lightning. They also use HDR5 on the video versus HDR4. Ooh, I guess if you're a video nerd, that would be big. It's a little smaller. The 15 is a little smaller and lighter. I was actually surprised because my previous phone was a 12, and it's much smaller than this 14. The 15 goes smaller, but the battery life is the same. The camera dimensions, the picture capability on it is the same. It's all the same. The screen side is the same. And then you get the faster chip. You get the 17 Pro, the A17 Pro chip versus the A16 chip. So that's it. That is not enough for me to justify upgrading even in cycle if I have a usable phone. So I'm not going to be upgrading this year. I might be upgrading next year, no matter what they change, just because my phone will go to my dad's phone. And that's how I was able to compare the phones right there in front of me as I was in the boat with my dad. Like, Dad, give me the phone. And he's like, okay. And then he was before that, he was like, give me your phone. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, I just wonder what kind of phone I'm going to get next year.
Well, it's interesting because talking about upgrades and not to get too far down the hardware tech iPhone rabbit hole. Last year, my wife was in the market for a phone, and she did go back to an iPhone, which is a whole other story. We've talked about it on the Gonna Geek show. But she went with the iPhone 13 at the recommendation of pretty much every vendor that was out there that was going, there's a significant discount on there. There's not really much different between the 13 and the 14, and there wasn't. And so it was a huge savings. So you're saying there's not much difference between the 14 and the 15. Therefore, iPhone 13 users might even struggle to find the justification for it. But I wanted to bring up the iPhone 15 just because of the USB-C and all the podcast-related accessories that are built for it. Because this is something we've talked about on this show and Better Podcasting main show over the years, is that there are a variety of different accessories, and some of them are microphones, some of them are other things. And because they're meant for the iPhones, they do generally use a Lightning connection. And so that means if you are going to get the iPhone 15 going forward, you need to be aware that you're going to need an adapter. And presumably the adapter Apple's selling should be, A to A, where it's like the functionalities pass through, but I can't say that for sure until we see it. I know in the past, back when there was some changes away from like the 3.5 millimeter jack, there were some people who found that some functionality was restricted going from certain adapters, from not necessarily even just Apple, but like even on the Android side of things, from whatever USB it was at the time, over to the headphone. Some officially supported adapters didn't do all functions. And so, and I think we saw this as well back when Apple switched from the massive connection down to Lightning. There was some different functionality. So just keep that in mind. You're going to want to be aware that if you are getting the iPhone 15 and you go and you're like, hey, I want to get this Apple product, you're probably going to also need to make sure you have an adapter that would work.
I do have a funny story relating to my iPhone, and it has nothing to do with podcasting, so I'll caveat with that. But while I was gone, my daughter was taking the dog for a walk, and I have on the dog a Apple AirTag as a locator, because dog gets out. I want to have some sort of chance to be able to find where it is, so I'm not like driving all over the neighborhood or whatever. I can like focus in my search, right? Well, apparently he came back without the Apple tag, and I was notified for a couple of days. And when I was notified, I looked it up on my phone, and it was in the middle of the local park. And I took a picture of the map, zoomed in as close as I could, and I sent it off. The one thing with the current Apple tag architecture is you cannot give access to anybody else. You can't say, hey, here's my Apple tag. So they can't ping it. They can't do the compass locator. You can actually locate. If it's within 25 feet, it will use, I don't know, Bluetooth. I actually don't know what it is. And then it will actually direct you in. If you're 5 feet away and then you move away, it'll say 6-7 feet. So those two I couldn't give to anybody. So when they couldn't find it, my daughters and whoever, they couldn't find it. So I came back over the weekend, and the first thing I did before I even drove home is I went right there, because I was like, okay, I want to find this. I thought if it's where it says it is, a mower is going to come, like a park mower is going to come, and it's going to chop it up, and it's going to be whatever. So I want to get it before, like, there's a possibility of a mower coming in the morning. I was actually shocked that it had gone a week. and nobody had taken it. The mower didn't chop it up or anything. So I'm standing over the spot that I see on the map, and I play a song, play the notification sound. So I play the sound and I hear it. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, okay. So I walk towards like the woods because it's in a path area that's like towards the woods. So I walk towards the wood and it's getting fainter. I'm like, okay. So I back up and it's strong again when I play it. And then I back up across the path and it's faint. So I'm like, I don't know where it is. So I'm doing this for a couple minutes. I'm like, well, this is stupid. I'll just use the compass. So I turn the compass on and and I'm standing right off the path in the grass, and it said, I'm 3 feet from it. And I'm pretty close to the woods. So I'm thinking, okay, it's in the woods because I can't see it. It's bright orange. This is what it is, by the way. I did get it back. So spoiler to the end of the story, but I walk towards the woods and it says 4 feet. I'm like, okay. So I walk back and then walk back again. It says 3 feet. Then I walk back again. It says 4 feet. So I walk to where it says 3 feet, walk to the side 4 feet, and walk back, walk to the other side 4 feet. So I look up, there's a tree branch right up there. So I'm like, great. There's a bird or a squirrel that's took it up to the tree. So I lifted up the phone thinking it would get closer from 3 feet to 2 feet. Nope. It said 6 feet. I'm like, crap. So then I lower the phone towards the ground. I'm not seeing anything in the ground, by the way. I'm lowering the phone to the ground. It says 2 feet, 1 feet, and it'll go all the way. So I get it to the ground and it starts vibrating. When you get close, it starts vibrating. It's like, it's here. I'm like, I don't see it. I put my finger into the grass, into the ground, and I felt something solid. So I picked it up. And it was this in the ground. So the only thing I could think of is it was mowed over, but the tire of the mower pushed it into the ground. That's all I could think of.
I thought maybe your dog buried it.
I don't know how it got off his collar because it has this little clasp to it. I did get a weatherproof case to the AirTag. So anyway, I haven't put it back on his collar yet because I think this little clasp thing was the weak point. So I'm going to have to do that. So if the podcast equivalent here is if you're traveling with your gear or whatever, put an Apple tag into it and you'll be able to find wherever the heck it is.
Even if it's been mowed over.
Even if it's been mowed over, it might be useless, but yeah.
So anyways, there you go. There's how we got to dog tags from iPhones is the USB-C change. So just be aware of that.
Back to podcasting.
And again, be aware that just because you've got a USB-C cable that somebody else has, it might not work with your iPhone because, again, not disputing what SP says. There is a variety of different things with the USB-C cables. And you do need to be aware of this because charging speeds matter to people as well. The other thing as well is be aware that if you're now using something that is more broadly out in the world, you have that chance of the USB compromise because, before it was like, if you knew you went and just picked up an Apple Lightning connection, but you could have had that happen with third party anyways. But I'm just saying, you might be more likely just to be hesitant or to just quickly grab somebody's charger. And you never know. You never know what could happen.
And about the AirTags, iOS 17 is going to have a function so you can share AirTags. So that's coming up in iOS 17, which will be on the 15, the iPhone 15.
That's huge. That is huge. Hey, so we've been doing a little bit of an update the last few weeks about Sony Vegas. I mean, not Sony Vegas. Wow, that's a throwback. Magix Vegas. Magix, the company that bought it from Sony many, many years ago. And I had a bit of an experience last week, and it was self-inflicted, but it's framed things a little bit for me. So overall, my experience within going to Vegas, this current version, is it seemed to be more stable than my previous experience. It seemed like things have not crashed randomly. There's many times that I've gone to go undo or gone to save and it's like, oh, here it comes. It looks like it's freezing, but I wait and it's come out of it. And so far things seem to be going well as far as that goes. However, I have consistently noticed a longer save time, an export time, a render time, where when I go to export the final video, it has been taking a lot longer than when I was in DaVinci Resolve. Still not 100% sure what is causing that, but it definitely is a lot longer. And so last week, while I was editing the Better Podcasting Live chat / Better Podcasting main show, I had accidentally put SP onto the wrong track. The project file that I had still had the old plugins and everything I had set up from when Damien had co-hosted it with you, and I accidentally put you on Damien's track. And therefore, what ended up happening is as soon as I went to preview the podcast, because that's my workflow, is I save it and then I 2x speed playback just to make sure everything sounds like it's all okay and there hasn't been any glitches. I noticed right away you sounded very, very wrong, which is because I was using the wrong track, therefore the wrong plugin chains, and I very quickly realized what was wrong, and so I had to resave. And I always preview. Most of the time, I will preview the final version that I have saved, just because I never know if there's going to be a plugin go wrong when it's exporting. And so I like to preview what I'm going to upload. And so in this case, I was out of time basically because it took like an hour and a bit to save and it was getting late and I'd had a bunch of things going on. And just with the day that I had, I was very limited with the amount of time that I had. So if it had been DaVinci Resolve, I likely probably could have got it out on time. But I just was strictly out of time to be able to re-preview that once it had resaved for another hour. So that's beginning to be a thorn in my side. I'm going to just say it right now. I think I might go back to DaVinci Resolve. And I'm not 100% sure on that yet. There's a few other things I want to try on Vegas. But the reason why I might want to go back is not only for the export time. In general, as I'm jumping around the timeline, it feels a little bit more responsive. Now, the only caveat to that is, to me, in Vegas, when I go to hit play on audio, if I want to do a bunch of fine cuts, it is more responsive on the audio front. So the video, not anywhere near close to Resolve. Resolve, the video is much quicker to play back and to be smooth and everything versus Vegas. But at least Vegas by default. There's some changes I might be able to make, but by default out of the box. And so the audio is better playback, I find, in Vegas versus Resolve. Resolve, it takes a few seconds to catch up. I'm wondering on either side if there's anything else I can do. So obviously I'm going to poke around the settings in Vegas a bit more because, as I mentioned, this was a trial. I probably will give the subscription one more month just to try, because at the moment I'm leaning towards not worth my money to upgrade. And in order to go back to Vegas, I don't think that's the way I'm going to go. But I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to try a couple more settings. And for the audio playback front on Resolve, I want to check a couple more things in there as well and see if there's anything I can change. There are aspects of Vegas I am happy to have back, but at the moment I'm leaning towards going back to Resolve, just especially from the export time perspective. The other thing as well is, this is a sort of silly thing, but I do like how in Resolve, I can do a macro button on the mouse to select everything after. Basically, I can click on a point and I can push a button on my mouse to be able to select all of the clips past that point. In Vegas, you got to right click. It's stupid. You got to right click and then click select after, which is simple, but it's nice to push a button instead.
Especially since you do it so much. I do it all the time. So that now that you say that, it's one of the limitations that I have with editing in Vegas. My two time pain points with Vegas is, of course, the render, but I render in 4K. You don't. So that's at least an hour, because with my computer and with the files that I have, it usually takes about a 1-to-1 ratio to render in 4K. So that's one. And then when I upload it to YouTube, I have the video version anyway. I have a wonderful connection now. It takes maximum 4 minutes. If I go like an hour and a half, takes about 4 minutes to upload, but then it takes like 4 hours for it to process once it gets to YouTube. And I guess there's some settings that I could change in order to speed that up, but in my render, not in YouTube. And I just haven't done that yet. So those are the two time pain points I really have with Vegas.
I'm glad you brought that up. That triggered something. That is in my export process, that is the biggest thing that drags me a little bit back is I have to in Resolve export. What is it? It's for the video. I have to export in. I want to say it's a different format. There, I forget what the reason is. I think I have to export in the Apple format in ProRes or
MOV?
something. Yeah, it might even be MOV. And I do it. It's MOV because the free version of Resolve, if I export it the proper MP4, the audio codec, it'll only allow you to go so high, and I'm not happy with it. And so I think if I paid for the full studio, you get the full suite of options. So that's the only thing that is on the export front a bit of a downside, because I do have to I do upload that MOV. I actually think that YouTube doesn't handle it that great. Since we came back, I think the video quality is a little worse compared once YouTube's processed it. I don't think it handles that as well as it does uploading an MP4.
I know it's got to handle MOV because a lot of people with iPhones and iPads upload it, and heck, even the MacBooks and iMacs or whatever, they all export in MOV. So YouTube has to take it, but as far as how they handle it and convert it, because they are whenever you upload a video to YouTube, they do eventually convert it to something else. They never take your video and then that is what is distributed. It's always processed to something else. At least I've never found something that they don't process. Now, if it's a very short, like 1 minute video or whatever, it takes a second to process it. But if it's an hour, it takes a while.
So we'll see. I don't know. I'll give it some more time. Maybe I'll change my mind back. Maybe I'll find a couple of settings in Vegas that will patch some of those holes, and I'll end up staying there. We'll see. Because there, as I mentioned before, there are some things that I was happy to have back.
Yeah, and the other thing is editing is all going to this, textual editing now and descript sort of editing, and even video is headed towards that now. I would find that a little bit difficult for the advanced video editing that like you would do, that you would do an AI type editor with video, but I know more and more people are using it. The Adobe one with the auto switch camera, the plugin that you use for that is being used. I just see that happening over time to the point where I don't know, there'll be people like us that want to do it with the tracks and want to finesse every single little bit of information along the way. But I'm wondering if the software capabilities, the applications, will be available 5 years from now the way that they are today.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be a merge of the two is my thoughts. I think there's only so much you'll ever be able to do with text, just because, like, let's say that you and I are forming a word together, or forming a sentence together. There is a very specific way that you have to cut before and after the word, or if you're merging the word, where you do it in the word. That's always going to be a thing with editing, is having to do that. Now, AI might fix that, but you can't, with a text editor, trying to finesse that. I don't know how you'd be able to say, I want this pause here. I think it'll get better, but I think that you probably would be able to maybe bulk edit it in text and then be like, I want to edit this section, and then you might be able to drill in, or you'll see the text editors come into the full DAWs. I think that could be the case as well.
When you're talking about getting content out in an expedited manner, I mean, we've already seen a major channel. That's another discussion in which you can go to our Discord server. There is a tech channel out there that got in trouble. And one of the things that they got in trouble for was their breakneck pace of getting content out. As that progresses and people's desire to both consume and to create content at a faster pace, I just see AI becoming more and more valuable in that type of rapid production setting. So those tools are going to get the attention versus the tools that we use are not. And I'm wondering if things like Audacity is just going to go away someday,
Well, and I think the AI based stuff, the voice synthesis, Once that's good enough, the whole editing a word together won't even matter. You just type in what the word is. But
it's not. I don't think it's a matter of when or if. I think it's a matter of when. So we're talking 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's coming. I just don't know how fast.
Yeah. Hey, last week we dropped the episode into the Better Podcasting live chat and the Better Podcasting main show, and we got talking all about the idea of feed drops with multiple shows distributing the same episode. And Waffles had come in and he had given us a comment about feed drops. He had said, I'm cool with stuff like sorry, I have to adjust my window. There we go. I'm cool with stuff like Mental Health Avengers from Anthony Capes on the Couch, where it's a special event and you want to make sure the fans of every show get it easily, or every show gets to easily hear it. It's only 9:35 my time. My apologies, Waffles. I butchered that. And it says Hot Hero Summer also okay because it keeps me from having to flip back and forth to hear the next episode. Not cool with times where a random show just gets dropped. Looking at you, April Fool's Day. Undecided on check out my new show.
Yeah, so in my case, it was, hey, I want to drop something in Voices of Defiance feed. So that's like a check out my new show. I did listen to that back, and at the time it made sense what your comments were on that. And when I listened back, it was like, okay, I see it. If it's a dead feed, what's the problem, right? Why don't you throw in a feed there, or at least a commercial into that feed? And it should be no big deal. But the bigger things like NPR, Gimlet, they have done that with dead feeds, and either dead feeds or they're in the middle of like seasons, and so they throw a lot of other crap in there. I just don't want the crap. I want the podcast, and that's it. As far as Hot Hero Summer, the only problem I think with that was mine, where I'm just OCD and listen to every single thing. And yeah, I listened back and you were making sense. Like, what? Well, why do you do that? And I'm like, well, I don't want them to not know that I didn't listen through it. It's like with Overcast or whatever. You're like, so they're putting it out twice. What do they expect? So yeah, I think it was wise for them to do that because the Hot Hero Summer, the feed drop, because it let them have the same stuff on each feed separately, but only one of them was editing every other week, or at least in the publishing. They recorded in spits and spurts, and since they were watching 6 episodes of Heroes at a time, it was a lot of work for them to do. I think I'd be interested to hear from either of them on if they would recommend doing what they did again, because it was a tremendous amount of work, both in the actual editing, publication, but also in just the reviewing, the preparedness side of things, because they were watching 6 episodes of TV and then podcasting on it. And sometimes every other day they were doing that. That's a lot of work.
That is. In our chat, our live chat, because we do stream this live, which is usually at 4:15 p.m. Pacific time. That is 7:15 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays at Geeks.Live. We do have Lane Robinson saying, I think a commercial approach is better unless there's a true synergy between the drop show and the hosting feed. And I agree that April Fool's swaps can just go. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that was a fun thing back in the day. And I think a lot of the April Fool's things are... the world is different. And people believe things.
Well, and there's a difference between, I guess, swapping the entire show to somebody else's show and then bringing on other people to host your show. I think there's 2 different things.
Yeah. I still, though... I mostly agree with everything that's been said. I still maintain that you and I are probably a little negligent in not dropping episodes of this into the main show in between seasons occasionally. Even if we just threw a little opening tag, different end tag. I think that with the audience numbers difference that we've seen between the 2 shows and the similar concept between that, we've even talked about that. We've had feedback in the past about people asking why we separate them. I still think that there is probably some listenership that we could have gained if we had dropped, not all the time, but the occasional tease episode of this into the main feed. I think that they're close enough.
1 per off season, maybe.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people will write in and they'll say, pound sand, Steven, you're wrong. That's fine.
Like the pound symbol and then the word sand?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Does that even work in Discord?
I don't know. We had some
That's
other
like another channel. I'm not going to create a sand channel in Discord.
What a great segue, because the last thing that I wanted to mention today is that this show here, the feedback from this show, created a new channel in the Gonna Geek Discord, because last week on this show, we ended up getting to talk about vehicles, because I am in the market for a new vehicle, and we got chatting all about it. And there was people who came to the Better Podcasting channel, and they seemed to quite enjoy it. It took me by surprise, I have to say. I thought that it was going to be people commenting the opposite, saying, keep your vehicle talk out of podcasting. But we did have people who did come and say that they liked it. Newsreel, for example, said, oddly enjoyed the car chat. I remember my brother's first car just had a radio in it, so he had a FM tuner for his iPod. Also, SJ should get a ute and pretend to be a cool Aussie bloke. And then there was a whole bunch of other chat that happened about it. But on that front, totally have done the FM tuner thing before, not with podcasts, but back in the day with MP3 players and music. So that FM tuner thing was fun. And we ended up creating a vehicle talk just because it kept going. So in the Gonna Geek Discord channel, we now have a vehicle talk channel if you want to go over there. And maybe we'll have to create a ute talk.
Maybe just a ute talk thread in the vehicle talk channel.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, that was fun. A lot of talk. And you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with podcasting? The talk about Android Auto and Apple CarPlay came up, and the application to podcasts, and how important is that in a vehicle selection, where you're going to have the vehicle probably a lot longer than you're going to have your phone, sort of thing. So that is why that channel popped up separately, and why we're even still talking about it on Better Podcasting, because of the application towards podcast. I mean, there's a lot of consumption tech that goes into podcasting.
So that's all I had to contribute today. We had some other feedback that we'll bring up in next week's episode of Better Podcasting, which is technically this week because it's Sunday, as SP said. SP, you were away. Did you bring your microphone with you? Yes or no?
I did, but I didn't bring it out of the pack. I always bring it with me for emergency purposes. Like if something happens, if there is an emergency and I'm stuck wherever I'm going. So it's just the AT 2005, I believe. That's what it's in my bag. It's either that or the Samsung Q2U, but I believe it's the AT 2005 that I bring with me. So I did have that microphone. I did not have my Rode Pod mic or Procaster, which I have had at the lake before. I did not bring that, but I did bring my Zoom PodTrack P4 with me. I brought my mic, so I had that. I did not use it. A couple of things that I want to say just in this week is that Podcast One IPO'd on the NASDAQ as an IPO, which means they went public for their stock. It was initially valued at $8. It ended the first day of trading at $2.74. So we're talking about podcast distribution through iPhones, through cars, and stuff like that. Podcast One is a distribution network. It's a podcast creation network. They promote a lot of big shows, like 50,000 downloads per episode on up. And the IPO was $2.74, down from $8. So a lot of people lost some money off of that, because if you are on the inside and you get offered an early buy-in, you can take that. Like if you're a company stock or whatever, you can buy, and then you end up losing if you choose to sell down at $2.74. Odds are it'll come back up at some point, but I don't know if it'll come back up that much. And just on the tails of that, I just want to say this again. Lipson had stock, Liberated Syndication had stock. It has been taken down from being traded for over a year now, I believe, and it is still not liquidable. You can't sell it. If you have it, you cannot sell it. And I believe I saw they had like 3 million shares out there or something like that. So the shares are still ownership of the company, but I'm guessing they're going to try to reduce the value of them through some sort of splitting and buyback and whatever. So if you own some of those shares, Don't expect a lot from them. That's just my personal opinion. It is not a professional. I have no training or professional accreditations in stocks or bonds or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that the podcast industry financially is still volatile. I don't know if it'll self-correct. I tend to think it's down because of the advertising is down. I think there was a lot of money poured into it a few years ago with Spotify's initial purchase of things and coming in with like $1 billion or whatever they had. And it's not that industry today in 2023. Just want to say that. I know we're a hobby podcast. We talk to other hobby podcasters, but if you're interested in podcasting as a career, just FYI, the companies aren't doing so hot right now.
Good point. Hey, one last thing that I actually wanted to throw in. I just thought of it now, and I meant to put it on the list. Last week when I was publishing to Better Podcasting main feed, I realized I am indeed affected by the Apple Podcast numbering thing that you talked about. And where I totally forgot about it was on Libsyn. That's why I remembered right now. On Libsyn, there is a separate Apple Podcast box. And once that number thing came out, I got in the habit of starting to take off the number from the beginning of the title. So although the main title in the episode had the number in it, which means all the other places had it, for the Apple Podcast section, there was no number in the title. So I don't remember if when that came in, I went back and did them all, or I just started from that point forward on the main feed. So I got to go do some digging, and I'm hoping my laziness pays off. I'm hoping I didn't go back. I'm hoping that I was lazy. And I don't know if I did go back, I'm not even going to take credit because I feel like I would be lazy. I feel like maybe you would have gone in and done it. So I'm not sure, but I got to go do some digging. At the very least, I do know that it's stripped of the numbers from whenever we made that decision to start doing that.
Yeah, well, my feed refresh update still stands at episode 35. I haven't done anything, of course, not being here and taking the week off for podcasting. And then also, I wanted to ask everybody a question. I know we had a couple of questions. We had like 3 or 4 questions on last episode. I want to ask everybody a question in this episode. Are you comfortable making your podcast or your Patreon stats public? Are you comfortable with it? Because I know there's a lot of bigger shows that they publish their stats, and it's almost like they're pumping their chest. Like, yes, we had 3 million downloads this month, or whatever it is, and they're pumping their chest saying, yeah, I have all these downloads. I'm in the top 1% sort of thing. But if you're a hobby podcaster, are you really comfortable getting those out? Now, I know if you publish to YouTube, those plays are usually visible to everybody, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your podcast statistics or your Patreon statistics. Both very telling statistics, especially if you're smaller, about what your popularity really is. So are you comfortable with that or not? So you can go ahead into the Better Podcasting channel on our Discord server at betterpodcasting.com/Discord. And just let us know over there. It's something that I'm wondering. I've been borderline for my shows, to be honest with you. I haven't come up with a decision. And so I'm throwing it out to the jury of the electorate of Better Podcasting listeners, if you're comfortable with it or not.
This is, by the way, I've taken a new approach to solve this question. Is with my new podcasts, I don't actually upload them. That way I can just, put a little check mark on a piece of paper every time I listen to it. That way I know exactly how many listens it's been, and I'm the only one that needs to know that.
And your audience gets to know everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for coming on by, and I want to give a special thanks to SP here, because last Wednesday when we were supposed to stream this, when I was supposed to stream this, because SP was away and I said I would take it on, I had a day that just meant that it did not end up being able to happen. I thought I was going to have to go earlier, and then that all fell apart, and so it all fell apart. And then I thought, well, I'm still going to try to get a short episode out, and I'll try to record something. It might even be offline, and then get it out into the feed. And then SP was back, and so I asked him if he wanted to do it, and he said yes. He said he was willing to forego painting all of the Bengals face paint colors all over his face before he went and he watched the game, and he was willing to forego that in order to stream today on Sunday morning. Yeah. So thank you very much, SP.
So first of all, I'm not a Bengals fan. Second of all, the only thing I forego was pre-gaming. So that has not happened. This has not been an alcohol-fused pre-NFL game podcast. But yeah, thanks very much. I did flirt very, very briefly with doing a podcast when I was, not this one, but another podcast when I was up there. And my co-host said, no, SB, you will not do that. So I really appreciate them doing that because, you know, when I got back, there wasn't even time to edit. My day yesterday was wall to wall, just, you know, taking care of the yard and the house and stuff like that, laundry, unpacking, which I still am in the process of doing. So there's a reason why you take a week off from podcasting. And yeah, and remember, have fun with your podcasting, because if you're a hobby podcaster, the fun is what's going to keep you going, even when you come back from vacation. It's the fun is, hey, you reevaluate stuff when you podcast. And, you know, I was reevaluating my podcast. To be honest with you, I was reevaluating my participation in podcasting, which I do on every vacation. And then when I got back and I just messaged Steven last night, so you gonna publish a shorty this week? And he's like, maybe. You available tomorrow morning? I was like, sure, let's do it. So that's why I'm here.
I had also thrown out the idea of recording really late at my time, so it would have been like midnight his time last night, and I don't know, that just didn't seem to get any legs.
Well, I mean, you would have had to have stopped drinking at noon.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to this show. We'd love to have your chat. Please come on over to our Discord at betterpodcasting.com/Discord. You can chat with us in between recording sessions. Then you can also go over and watch us live at www.Geeks.Live when we do stream this show. And you can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com/contact. We are all over various socials because, hey, there's many right now.
Yeah, definitely. You can find me at Blue Sky. That's my favorite one, Blue Sky at Stargate Pioneer over there. You can find me there. And like Steven said, if you need a Blue Sky code, hit them up on our Better Podcasting channel. We'll see everybody next time.
So for episode 62 of Better Podcasting Live Chat, I'm Steven saying, watch your USB-C cords. SP is right on that.
And I'm SP saying, if you get an iPhone 15, I'd like to hear your experience with it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for checking out another episode of Better Podcasting. You can find the full back catalog of Better Podcasting at betterpodcasting.com. If you're into geeky podcasts, please check out the other podcasts on the Gonna Geek Network at gonnageeknetwork.com. This show was produced and edited by Stephen Jondrew. Voice work was done by L.W. Salinas. Thanks again for listening or watching, and we hope to see you again next week.